Hey everyone, I've got what might be quite a quick video for you this time. We're going to look at using the camera. So I haven't had massive amounts of time to look into doing stuff this month because June's very busy if you work in a school. But what I have done is looked at using webcams for the sake of student work. So I'm going to show you how we did that. Really simple, this first part. We'll just look at getting the webcam to display something. So I've just got a blank flash file here. I've also got a browser open because a lot of this comes straight from Adobe's help, which you should make a lot of use of. If you go to Google or your preferred search engine and just type AS3 space camera, hit enter, you'll notice that the top link links you to Adobe's Live Docs, and they're a great source for pretty much anything or everything in ActionScript 3. And a lot of what we're going to do comes from some of these examples. We're not going to copy them word for word, but the page is a great reference for using the camera anyway. What is quite useful are these examples. If we just click view the examples here, it takes us straight to a really basic example of setting up the camera. What I'm going to show you now is a bit of a variant on this one. Mostly this sort of code here, but we'll simplify it a little bit. We'll start off in the timeline because this month's video is meant to be an easy one, but we will take it across into classes, and it's a chance for you to see how to go from timeline to class if you've never really done that. So starting the timeline, as I mentioned, brand new flash file, and I've saved this to my desktop in a folder called camera stuff, I think. Not going to draw anything on screen. I might change the size and colour though, so let's just change this background to black. Maybe make it a bit bigger. Let's go 640 by 480. Okay, and let's hop into the timeline. So right click, actions, and wait for the window to pop up. Let's get coding. So the first thing we need to do is actually get hold of our webcam. And that's a lot easier than you might think. Flash does a lot of the hard work for us. So we'll just make a variable, var, and call it camera with a lowercase c. And this is going to be a camera, so we can tell it with a colon to be of type camera. Let's just, oh, Flash has imported that for me, I don't really need that. We'll do when we go to classes though. So var camera of type camera equals, and then we access the camera class, so we type camera again, do a dot, and you can see there's a few things, well 3 things, and we're just going to use the getCamera method function. So do camera.getCamera, open and close your brackets, and do a semicolon. And that will store an instance of your attached camera into this camera variable. That alone won't actually give us anything though, so we need a video to display the feed from our camera. So I'm just going to save it, do a new line, and let's throw in a comment. So get hold of your camera. And underneath that we make a video to display the camera stream. Camera. So let's go var video of type, you guessed it, video equals new video, and you can specify a size. Let's say for now we go the full size of the screen. We'll probably come back and change this. Let's go 640, 480. We could also pass in the stage width and height instead, but I'm not going to do that. Next we need to attach the camera to this video, so we'll do video.attach camera, and then in the brackets type the name of the camera, and ours happens to be called camera, conveniently. Last thing, add the video to the screen, and we're good to go. So we'll add child, just as you do with pretty much any display object. Add child and put the video in there. That's pretty much it. That's about as simple as you can get it. If we save that, test it, see what happens. Notice that my camera light turns on, and ooh, you can almost see me. Macs are a bit too clever for their own good. If the room's bright, it'll make it really dark. Ooh, there we go. There's my pixelated mug. Yeah, let's get rid of him. Let's try and spend as little time as possible staring at my face. So we've got a video on screen, but if you might have noticed that the quality was quite low, and that's because the default settings of the camera when you do this get camera are quite low. So let's increase the quality. Increase the quality of the feed. So we'll get access to our camera. So camera dot, and we can get a big list of all the properties and functions. We're actually going to set mode, I'm pretty sure. Camera.set mode, capital M, open brackets, and this takes 3 pieces of information: the width and height in pixels, and then the FPS is the frames per second. So let's go 640, 480 to match the screen, and let's try for 24 frames per second to match the flash file. So we've increased the quality of the camera. Save that and try it again. Hopefully when I pop on, I'm a lot less pixelated. It's not a pixel art ant anymore, it's just an ant. We'll keep it dark so you don't stare into my gaunt face. So far so good. What we haven't guarded against is the eventuality that this camera doesn't exist or a camera isn't installed. So what we could do around all of this is have if, open brackets, camera not equal null, just as there was in the example there. If we flick back to it, you can see they do a check. After they've done the get camera, the master there at Adobe has just checked to see if the camera exists. So we'll only do the other stuff if the camera exists. Put a comment there. If the camera exists, do some other stuff. So we've made the if, and we'll just close it there at the bottom. Check that that works. That seems okay. Get an image of me scratching my head. If for whatever reason your camera isn't displaying, let's just go back in. If you can't see anything, you might want to right click and go to your settings and make sure that first of all your camera is allowed, so make sure it's allowed in the second tab, but also in the camera tab you might need to change where it's looking for your camera. Now I'm working on a Mac which has a built-in camera, so I'm stuck with the one option, but you might have a list there. Just make sure you've got the right one selected. Okay, let's do something a bit more interesting, and we'll start working with bitmap data, bitmaps, and we'll go into classes as well, I guess. First of all, maybe we'll just add a flash on top. That's quite simple. It doesn't really need to be a bitmap data object, and it's a nice simple class to get you started off. So we will change the way this works. I'm going to shrink my video down, and let's just shrink it. So before we add child here, I'm just going to scale the video down. I want to keep the quality but shrink the display. So I'm going to do video.scale x equals, and we could just put a value here, but I want it to equal video.scale y, and I want that to equal 0.25, so a quarter of the size. Save that and see what happens. And you can see now we've got a little camera feed at the top there. So when I actually decide to take a picture, I can have a static image from the camera in the background here. So far so good. We'll have to start working with clicks and saving the picture to a bitmap data, but we should probably get into classes for that. So if I end this part of the video now, for anyone too scared by classes, you can stop and go and do some research somewhere else. The rest of you, I'll see you in a second and we'll move on. Okay, moving on then. We're going to take a look at transferring our code from the timeline into a document class. Now I know this video is meant to be an easy one, we're on an easy month, so I'll try and keep it fairly gentle, but it's good to see how you can move code from the timeline to a class. For those of you who are going to be programmers, if you're setting out your first steps towards being a programmer, you're going to have to work in classes eventually. It's the way the world works. If you're a designery type, you just want to add a bit of interactivity to some drawing stuff, you might never leave the timeline, but it's good to understand how it works. Basically, what we need to do is specify a document class for our FLA class, and that's done. If you select nothing, just click on empty space on your stage, you can see in the properties box that we have this document class box. It just says the word class next to it, but it does say document class if you hover over it. And if you're working in CS5 or above, you can click this pencil to have most of it generated for you. If you're working under CS5, just go File, New, and make a new ActionScript file and follow the rest of what I do in that file. You'll probably have to pause the video and type out some lines to catch up. For the rest of us, we're just going to hit this pencil to generate a document class for our FLA. It needs to take a name, and I tend to stick with the same name as the Flash file, so I'm just going to call it main. Hit OK. And the first thing to do, as soon as it's generated this bit of code, you should save it. So Command S for me, save it next to your FLA file so it knows where it's working, and make sure it takes the name that you just gave the class. Don't change that file name. Just hit Save As, and we're OK now. We can start working. So what we're going to do is take the code from our timeline and bring it into this document class so that we have no ActionScript on frames in this timeline. Easiest thing is probably to just cut it all and then divvy it up to where it needs to go. So I'm going to cut everything from there, so we have no script in our timeline. You can see the little A disappears from the keyframe, and we'll work inside this AS file. Now the bulk of the code is probably going to go in this constructor here. The constructor is a little function, set of instructions that happens when this SWF is generated. So because this is the document class and the constructor builds this class, this is effectively building our SWF. So let's just paste all of our code in there underneath the constructor code comment, and I'm just going to quickly align it by hitting the auto format button there so it all jumps in. We're going to have to shift some of this around. I'm going to try and delete a lot of the white space just to bring things closer together. I normally have my curly brackets at the end of the line. Lets me compress things a bit. Okay, so there are a few things in the wrong place at the moment. It's just getting messy. Messy. A few things in the wrong place. So you can see up here what was generated for us was an import that imports flash.display.movieclip. And that's because by default Flash assumes that we're going to extend the movieclip class for our SWF. You don't actually have to do that. It can be pretty much any display object. And we'd probably be best off changing this to just be a sprite, but for now we'll leave it. But you'll notice that in the code we pasted in, we have two imports. They're the two libraries relating to the camera and the video that we've already used, but they're in the wrong place. So we're going to cut them from there. They won't go in our constructor. Let's just get rid of the white space and that comment. And I'm going to paste them up here with the movie clip import. Paste them in, just sort the tab in, and they're now in the right place. Some other little bits that we should move. These variables, this camera and the video, they will work. If I save this and test it, it should still work just as it did. Yeah, you can see. But the way we've done this isn't ideal in terms of working in a class. This variable and the video variable should be up here outside of the constructor so that their scope isn't limited. And by scope I mean the area where they can be used, basically. We can only use these variables in our constructor at the moment because they're both made in the constructor. So what I'm going to do is cut this little first bit, the var camera, I'm going to cut that and replace it with just the word camera and paste the original up there. Stick a semicolon on the end for good practice. Do the same with the video part. I'm going to cut that, replace it with the word video and paste that up here. Okay, what we should probably do while we're here is add an extra little bit of information at the front that explains whether these are public or private. For the sake of this project, it really doesn't matter. We can make them public. Public basically means they can be used by any other class. People can have access to them, or classes can have access to them from anywhere. If we make them private, we can only use them in this document class. Just bear that in mind if you want to be a bit more protective over your content. With that done, let's just check it works. Save it. You've got to save your document class every time if you want the changes to take effect. It's not like the Flash file where you can just run it and it'll build itself. You've got to save the file. Test it and it still works. Okay. So let's take the next step and we'll add the ability to click to generate a picture. So we're going to have a bitmap image in the background, and we're going to put a still image of our camera, the current state of the camera, onto that when we click the mouse button. So we're going to need a bitmap for that. So in this variable bit where we've got the camera and the video, I'm going to make another public variable. Let's call it bitmap. We'll stick with this scheme we've got going on there. Bitmap, and it's going to be a bitmap. So bitmap : bitmap. Because I'm in Flash 5.5, it's figured out that I want to use the bitmap class, so it's imported for me. Just make sure that if yours hasn't done it, that you type that line in, because you will need it. A bitmap on its own is useless without bitmap data. So the bitmap data stores all the information for the pixels that make up a bitmap. So we're going to need one of those as well. So do public var bitmap data, and that's going to be bitmap data. Hit a colon, and again we've got another import. Just make sure you've got that one as well. So we've now got our 4 variables. We're going to need a few more imports before we're done. And I'm just going to go down here to the constructor, get rid of a bit of the white space to bring it close together. And after the video is successfully added, I'm going to add an event list, and I'm just going to make some blank space at the bottom so we've got some room to work with. Under the add child video part, I'm going to add an event listener for a click. And I'm going to add this to the stage so that we can click anywhere. So stage.add event listener, open your brackets, do mouse event dot click. It's probably worth mentioning that in most classes you won't be able to get to the stage in the constructor. Document class is special because it's built when the SWF is made, so it has access to the stage from the off. Most classes don't. They will require an added to stage listener. Mouse event dot click, and then we'll call it snapshot. So my function will be called snapshot. Okay, need to make sure that I'm going to be working outside of my constructor but still within the class. So what I'm going to do, select these lines that make up my constructor, and I'm going to collapse them, but I've just realised I've not quite finished with it. So I've collapsed the bulk of it, but just at the top I need to make my bitmap and bitmap data. Make the bitmap and bitmap data. I'm still hard coding numbers at the moment. You should probably figure out a better way to do this. Maybe store the size up here or use the stage size if you want to, but I'm just going to stick with what I know my resolution to be at the moment. So I'm going to say bitmap data equals new bitmap data open brackets, and we give it a size. So we're going to stick with the 640 480 that we've been working with. And underneath that we're going to make the bitmap, so we'll do bitmap equals new bitmap open brackets, and this is where we tell this bitmap which bitmap data to use. And we just want to use bitmap data. And we'll add the bitmap to the screen. Add the bitmap to the screen. So it will actually be below our video, which is good. Just do add child bitmap. And we could actually collapse that down, so we could expand that. Let's get all of it, that whole constructor, collapse it. So it's nice and tidy. What we're going to need outside the constructor is the function we just added an event listener for. So I'm going to make a private function this time. Why not? It'll still work because it's part of this class. Private function snapshot. It's working with a mouse event, so we need a piece of information explaining that. And again, Flash has been nice and helpful and imported mouse event for me. Make sure you've got that line up at the top, otherwise this won't work. Dead simple in here. All I want to do when I click on the screen is take a still image of what the video is currently displaying. So let's draw the video onto the bitmap data. One line, really simple, just do bitmap data dot draw, open brackets, and we draw our video. If we didn't have these variables outside of the constructor, this snapshot function wouldn't work. It wouldn't have access to them because the scope of those variables would be in the constructor. So at this point I'm going to save, cross my fingers, test the file. Camera loads up. Notice the background is now white. That's because it's a default bitmap data. It's filled with white information. We could have changed that. White pixels. Let's just click and you can see we get a picture. Very dark picture of my face. Try and cover some of the light so we can see if the colours are properly working. Just use a hand to block out the bright bits. Click. Hey, there we go. I really need a shave. You can see my wee gathering dust there. Poor thing. Anyway, moving on. So that worked. We've got a snapshot. I should have done a few more just to show it does work. It's replacing the picture every time. You can see every time I click, it's taking a still image of what's going on. So that's pretty good. So far so good. What else can we do? Really just having a bit of fun with it now. We'll probably make something a bit more significant in the last part, but as long as you understand how this class has been made, then we're probably onto a winner for this section. Let's just quickly add a flash to the whole thing. We could do this in plenty of different ways. We could animate a flash. We could go back to our flash file and draw a rectangle bigger than the stage, solid white, and we could tween it in and out every time we click. But since we're experimenting with classes, why not do a class for it? Yeah, we'll do that. So let's go File, New, and because I'm in CS5, I can do a new class which will generate a little bit of it for me. Again, just do ActionScript file and catch up if you're not in CS5. I don't want to call this Flash because I have a feeling that'll clash with a few things. Let's call it Camera Flash. So my class name will be Camera Flash. Hit OK. And again, the first thing you should do is save this. So I'm going to save it, make sure it's saved next to my project, and start working on it. It's going to be quite simple, this. It's going to extend a sprite, or again movie clip, like our document class did. So let's just copy that for now. Those of you with a bit more experience might want to use a sprite, but movie clip's familiar for those of you who only work in Flash files, so we'll stick with that. Let's put extend movie clip on our class declaration, otherwise it won't inherit the behaviour of a movie clip. And do we need any variables? Probably not. Nope, don't think we do. Constructor code. So I'll just get rid of what that says and let's just fill the screen with white. So what I'm going to do is flood fill a rectangle with white. And again, I'm going to hard code numbers here because we're only making a little project and I happen to know the size I'm working with. Again, you might need to be a bit more methodical about the way you do this, but I'm just going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to start by accessing the graphics of this object. So I'm going to do graphics.begin fill. I'm going to start filling a white background in, so I'm going to do the code for white, which is 6Fs. That's a hex number. Graphics.begin fill white, that's saying. And then do graphics.drawRect. So we're going to draw a rectangle. the first two bits of information are the top left corner of this rectangle, so we want that to be 0, 0. And then the width, we're going to go 640 again, and the height 480. When we're happy with that, happy with what we've drawn, we do graphics.endfill to stop this sprite drawing onto itself. And that's pretty much it for the actual graphics. What we want to do once it's added, we need to reduce the alpha over time. We're going to make this flash fade out and then delete it from the screen. So we'll add an event listener here. Let's add an event listener to fade over time. This could be done in different ways. Again, this could be a timer or a tween. Just going to use a standard event.enterFrame that we've used in the monster tutorial, in plenty of other tutorials. So let's add event listener, event.enterFrame, and we'll call it loop. We're going to have to import event if Flash doesn't decide to do it for us. But just before we worry about that, let's make the actual function. So underneath the constructor here, I'm going to make the function that works with this loop. And I'll make this private again. So private function loop. And it's working with an event, and this is normally where Flash does the clever bit. Yep, so it's imported event. Imported event, sorry. Make sure yours has got that in. And I'm just going to reduce the alpha a little bit. Reduce the alpha of this symbol. We'll do alpha minus equals, so that will take something off the alpha. It's also the same as writing alpha equals alpha minus, let's say 0.05. So it should take 20 frames for this to disappear. Okay. If it's fully transparent, remove it. So when the alpha is 0 or less, we want to remove this object from the screen. We'll go through that now. So let's say if, open brackets, alpha is less than or equal to 0, go into the if. First of all, we're going to remove this event listener. So let's copy that. We don't want this event to keep firing after any longer than it needs to. So let's just change add to remove. And we'll check to see if this object has a parent. So if, open brackets, parent, that just checks to see that we're actually attached to something. You can't remove the object from a parent that doesn't exist. The parent is just the object that contains this flash, which will be the main screen in this particular project, but it could be in anything. So if parent, then we'll do parent dot, this won't work, remove child, this. That's the logic we want, but as it stands, Flash doesn't quite know what this parent object can do in terms of remove child. So we're going to tell it to treat parent as a movie clip. And we do that by typing the type of object we want to consider it as, and then putting its name in brackets there. So we're saying to Flash, treat our parent object as a movie clip and call the remove child function. And I want you to remove this object. Quite a lot happened there, but it's fairly logical. If you read it, think about it for a few seconds, it should make sense. I'm just going to save that class, and to test it works, I'm going to add a flash when we do this snapshot. So when we've drawn the bitmap, we'll add a flash to the screen. And we do that simply by doing add child, open brackets, new camera flash. Save it, cross our fingers, wait for the camera to turn on, and then click. And that worked kind of well on the first try. Let's just get it so we can see a bit more. Yeah, dead simple. Well, it's not dead simple, but the effect is simple. Let's just cover up the windows so it's a bit dark, a bit lighter. And you can see every time I click, we get a flash. We get flashes layered upon flashes if we click too quickly. But it's working. Not too bad. Okay, we'll leave this section at that. We were just faffing about really, but we've got somewhere. Hopefully you're learning. And the last section will make something a bit more worthwhile, or a couple of things. See you shortly. Okay, on to part 3, the final bit. We're going to look at making the pin board from the tutorial preview that you might have seen on my site. It also means, unfortunately, you're going to have to look at my face a little bit more. Sorry about that. Let's get started by just jazzing up the stage a little bit. So I'm in the Flash file, and what I've got for you here, if you want it, is a cloth texture. I've doctored a little bit. And I'm just going to drag that in and position it at 0, 0, and then make sure, well, I don't need to resize it, it's already the right size. I'm going to rename that layer, let's call it BG, and lock it. And I'm going to make a very quick border. So I'm going to set my colour to white, do away with the line, we don't need that, and get my rectangle tool, and just quickly draw a rectangle that's the same size or bigger than the stage. Swap to the standard selection tool, press V to get it with the shortcut. Make sure it's positioned at 0, 0 and it's suitable size. Okay, and I'm going to convert that. No, I'm not going to do anything of the sort. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to right click, copy, then click off from it, right click, paste in place. So we've got the same thing over itself. Then free transform it, press Q on your keyboard, and start dragging from a corner. You'll notice that it goes towards the other corner instead of bringing everything in. If you hold the Alt key, it'll transform around the centre, which is what we're after. And I'm just going to drag until I've got a reasonable border, let go. I'm going to change the fill colour of this to a different colour, deselect it, reselect it, and get rid. So just delete that. Now there are plenty of other ways, probably more efficient ways of doing that. You don't watch me for my artwork, that just happened to be the way I did it. So there you go. Select your new made border, right click, convert to symbol, give it a name, call it border. We're not going to be scripting with it, so you don't need to export it for ActionScript. And I'm just going to throw a few filters onto it. So we're going to hop over to the filters panel. If you can't see it, make sure you've got Windows properties on. Let's add a new filter. I'm going to start with a glow, and I'm going to change it to an inner glow. Change it from red to black. I'm going to put the blur up a little bit, maybe put the quality up, which probably means the blur down. You're going to have to play around with the settings until it looks right. And I'm going to put the strength down a bit, it's a bit too much. Just so we get the idea of depth on this border. That's okay. And I'm going to throw a drop shadow, I think. Can't think of a better way to do it. We'll do a drop shadow. I'm going to put the blur up again. Oh, that's the glow. Put the blur up on the drop shadow. And the distance up slightly, so it goes a bit further. I'm going to put the quality up, and I'm going to put the strength down. Just so it's got a bit of depth to it. Looks like the border's casting a shadow. It's possibly too big. And now it's too strong. Fiddle around with it until you're happy with how it looks. Still too strong for my liking. And until you've got a border you're happy with. I'm not going to get hung up on graphics. But what I will do quickly is copy that border, Command C, right click, paste in place, and just scale it down a touch so it's kind of a double edge border. And there you go, that's pretty much what I did. I think I want it a bit smaller than that. Something like that. I think mine had rounded corners in the end, but we're not here to do artwork. You definitely wouldn't come to me for artwork, so lock that layer, I rename it. And that's the Flash file good to go. Let's actually code something. I'm going to make a new class now, a picture that we can stick onto this board. So let's go File, New. And again, if you're in CS5 or above, we'll choose Class. If you're below, choose File and Catch Up. This class is going to be called Picture, capital P. Hit OK, and first things first, let's get it saved. So I'm going to save it with everything else. Go to my desktop, in Camera Project, save. Now this picture is going to be a sprite, or extend sprite, which our camera flash probably should have done. There was no reason for that to be a movie clip, but it was what Flash offered us at the time, and because we were just getting into it, we stuck with it. But what you should do, if things don't animate, you want flash.display.sprite as the class you extend. I should have put import first, I was just typing the name of it, but Flash is jumping the gun. So we want to import flash.display.sprite. We're also going to need the bitmap and bitmap data in here eventually. We'll come back to that. We'll get the border set up first. Public class picture, we want to tell that to extend sprite. Okay, so we're set up. And this constructor isn't going to have a random comment in constructor code. What it's going to do is draw a border around the image. So we're going to have a white border that's slightly bigger than the picture. And here's where we hit the first stumbling block. We don't know what the picture is. So this is where we're going to import a picture into this picture class. So when we call, or when we make an instance of this picture, we're going to provide it with a bitmap data object. So we'll pass that in, we'll put bitmap data, which will be a bitmap data. So when we make a new picture in our document class later on, we will pass in a bitmap data object for it to make a picture of. Now we have a bitmap data we can use the size of to draw a border. So we'll start with setting up the graphics. We'll do graphics.beginFill like we did before. Open brackets, and we'll go with white again. Feel free to use a different colour if you're sick of white. Graphics.drawRect, and this will be quite a lengthy process, so I'm probably going to split this over a bunch of lines. The X position is not going to be 0. We want to offset this so that the picture is centered. The registration point is in the middle. So we'll go minus bitmap data dot width, and half that, and then we want to take off an extra bit for the border's size. So we could just hard code in a number like 10. But let's use a constant. We'll go with border size. So up here, before the constructor, we need to make this constant. So we just type const, and we go with border size, and we do it in capitals normally when we're working with constants, just so we know it's a constant. Border size equals 10. So we're going half the size of the bitmap data to the left, and then 10 more pixels to the left. So we're going to have a 10 pixel border. Comma, and then I'm going to split this across multiple lines. The the starting Y position is very similar. We can do bitmap data.height this time, divide by 2, take border size away. Comma, and then we do the size, which will just be bitmap data.width plus 2 times border size. And finally, height, bitmap data. Sorry, I'm a bit slow, it's late, as you can probably tell by my clock. Bitmap data.height plus 2 times border size. So we've got a rectangle that should be 20 pixels bigger than our bitmap data. And then we'll end fill. Graphics.endfill. Now we won't have a picture on it at the moment, but we should have a border, so we can test to see if this works. Let's just save it. Go to our document class, and because we won't be just drawing straight to the screen now, we can actually get rid of this bitmap. Let's get rid of him or her. And in the constructor, we don't need to add the bitmap or indeed make it, so let's get rid of both of those lines and collapse our constructor down again so it's out of the way. And I'm going to update this snapshot function to make a new picture instead of drawing bitmap data to the screen directly. So we'll still draw the video onto this bitmap data object. We've got it there so we can use it. And then we'll make a new picture from the bitmap data. Now the way I'm going to do this will probably cause problems later on. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But let's do var picture will be type picture, and it will be a new picture. I'm going to say picture a lot of times. Open brackets, and you can see it's prompted us for this bitmap data, so we'll put bitmap data. And last thing, quickly add it to the stage, add the picture to the screen. Add child, picture. Save it, let's try it at this point, hopefully it works. I haven't imported bitmap data. Dope! So back to the picture class, let's quickly import flash.display.bitmap and import flash.display.bitmap data. Save it, try it. When it's all fired up, hello, click, we get the flash and we get this picture, but notice it only covers 1/4 of the screen, and that's because we've centered it now, so 3/4 of this picture are actually over here. So back in our document class, in the snapshot, let's reposition the picture just before we add it. So we'll do picture.x equals 320, which is half of my stage size. Hard coding isn't the best idea again, but you can work around that. And picture.y. So now when we're all booted up, obligatory wave, and click. And we get nothing else because the picture's filling the screen. Or the border of it is, at least. Let's put something into it, and we'll get a problem here because this bitmap data is going to be the size of the screen. Our border will actually be off the stage, but we'll fix that. After the border has been done, we're going to make a bitmap and add it to the screen here. So we'll do var bitmap of type bitmap equals new bitmap, and the bitmap data will be what we've passed in. So we'll use bitmap data. Just before we add this to our picture, we need to position it. So we'll do bitmap.x equals minus bitmap data dot width over 2. So we're moving it half to the left. And same for the y, bitmap.y equals minus bitmap data dot height over 2. And then add child bitmap. So this picture should now have a picture. Let's save it, try it all, wait for it to fire up, wave, click. And you can see my Gormless face fills the whole screen. We don't get the border unless we stretch. So what we can do to combat that is just scale it down a bit. We still want to keep the full quality of the picture, we don't want it to obscure everything. So just before it's added again, I'm going to scale it down a touch. Let's do picture dot scale x equals picture dot scale y equals 0.6 maybe. Maybe even give it a random rotation like I did in the preview. So let's do picture dot rotation equals math dot random times, I don't know, let's say between 20 and minus 20. So if we times math.random by 40 and take 20 off the result. This time when we're all fired up and we've waved, we click. Oh, I clicked twice by mistake, but you can see the effect it had. Could do with having these in different positions, so I just want to try something. So if I put my hand so it's obscuring that top corner and click. So my hand is blatantly in the top corner of that. If I click again, just want to check something. You can see that every picture, the picture just before is updated to take this new bitmap data. And that's because when we pass in an object like a bitmap data, back in this document class here, where we're making our picture, we're passing in bitmap data. Bitmap data are complex elements, so they're not actually passed. A new bitmap data isn't made and given to this picture, it's passed by reference. So every picture at the moment is using the same bitmap data. That was the problem I was anticipating before. So what we can do, instead of passing in the exact one, we can actually clone it, or we should be able to clone it. If we do bitmap data.clone, can try that. So it's quite hard to tell if the pictures are different, but again, if I can get my hand in the top corner, so my hand's definitely in the top left corner of that picture, and now it's not. You can see in the back there that my hand is still in the top left corner of that one, but it's not in this one. And I'm looking very dull and very tired, I must add. Okay, we're getting somewhere, but let's pin them to the board. They're just floating in the middle of the world. So we'll maybe change our snapshot so that once we've taken a snapshot, the next click will position it. So I'm going to quickly expand my constructor, and I'm going to copy the add event listener line we had so we can remove it. Okay, and when we take a picture, we want to remove the event listener so the next click doesn't do that. So let's do stage.remove event listener. Why am I doing that? Just needed the word remove. Tiredness kicking in. Save that, and we should only be able to take one picture now. I didn't wave. Yeah, we can only take one picture, so extra clicks are not doing anything. I'm going to add a different listener that will take us into the pinning the picture phase. And instead of positioning the picture at whatever, I'm going to start dragging it actually. So add the picture to the screen and start dragging it. So we'll do picture.x equals mouse x, picture.y equals mouse y, and picture.start drag. So it will follow the mouse. Save it, try it out. Wave. Click, and you can see we're dragging the picture now. So until we click again, we'll drag the picture around and then we'll pin the picture wherever you happen to click. I'm going to copy this. I think it's already on my clipboard actually. So after everything's done, we've flashed, we'll start the next listener to pin picture. Paste it in, and instead of having a snapshot, we'll do pin shot. We might have a problem where both of these listeners fire at the same time, so we might take the picture and instantly pin it. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. There are a few ways around it. We'll figure one out. Just collapse that down. The snapshot function is ready now. We need to do the pin shot, so we'll do another private function pin shot. This again is a mouse event. And we've got the same problem again with scope, because we don't actually know what we're dragging. So really, our picture should be up here. Let's quickly do that. Tired brain. Let's copy this, cut this first bit of our picture, and we'll say picture equals new picture. And up here, we'll make sure the picture is available to all of our functions. Pin shot will stop drag on picture then, so we'll do picture.stop drag. We maybe even reduce the scale of picture again, just so it's when it's pinned, it's sort of stuck in deep. It's in the distance, whereas new pictures are up at the front. So let's, we'll drop the scale. Picture.scalex equals picture.scaley equals 0.4. We need to remove our event listener for the pin shot. So let's remove that one. And we need to add the original, which was snapshot. We need to add that one back. Let's hope I haven't missed anything there. Wait for everything to load up. Wave and click. And I'm now dragging that picture. Click to pin it. Click again to take another picture, click to pin it, click again, maybe mix it up, put a stupid face in there, look at the camera for the first time in the whole tutorial. You can see that my pictures are actually overwriting the video feed, which isn't ideal. Let's fix that. So here where we add the picture, we can actually use the function addChildAt. We still explain which object we want to add, but we also pass in an additional parameter for index, and we can get child index of our video for that, so that we make sure all pictures are added below the video. So addChildAt, name of the child, and then the index. So let's quickly save it and try that. Wave, click, drag the picture, and you can see it's behind the video straight from the off. So I don't really need to click to test it, we can see. Blurry face. That's pretty much it. I mean, I know the tutorial example preview had a pin, and I think it had the ability to save pictures, but you can Google that. Google PNG encoder, and it takes 3 seconds to figure out how to do that. Yeah, so shorter video than usual, but it was okay. It wasn't game-ish. I did mention that in the preview. I've had a very busy month, but it's something a bit different, bit of fun. Go and toy around with it. Maybe integrate it into your game so that when someone sets a high score, they've got to do a victory pose, and you put a picture of them into the game. That'd be interesting. On that note, I shall bid you good night. Bye bye.